Could do roll call?
Yes, ma'am. We have yourself, Trustee Steen, and Vice Chair Romero. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I would like to go ahead and ask Ms. Natalia Lopez to provide us with the safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry, real quick. And Key present.
Yes, at 11:02. Thank you.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I just want to make sure we noted that Dr. Mackey was here. Please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If that door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate, then move to the main parking lot in the front of the buildings or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready. Will you please stand with me for an invocation? We thank you for the many blessings you have freely given to each of us. We ask for your presence to guide this meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Provide them with the knowledge, compassion, and wise counsel needed as they discuss the business matters on the agenda today. Help us all to remember that we are stewards acting on behalf of our customers and provide us with the grace to serve all people well. We ask this in your name. Amen. Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, which is public comment. Ms. Carpenter, please proceed to facilitate public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on posted agenda items for this meeting. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak. They may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they will speak about. For this meeting, we have 8 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Dr. Terry Burns.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Henrietta LaGrange, member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang. And today, thank you for allowing me to be here. But before I address the issue that's on the agenda, I would like to thank every CPS employee, gas, electric, because they are really the backbone of why all of us are here. Thank you. Also, the main reason that I'm here is, remember, I'm a member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang, and I just have one vote, and the gang says they're against the rate hike. They said that no matter how many numbers you put together, no, it's not going to work because they say they're all in a fixed budget, and I understand, I'm on one too. And they said that we just had one, and believe me, they're up on all, they Google all the information for me sometimes because I get busy, and they says, please don't vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Dr. Terry Burns, followed by Joe Dunn.
Good morning, Board, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Terry Burns. I'm a former leader of the local Sierra Club. My colleague, Alan Montemayor, is at SAW's committee meeting at this time. We would like to thank you for a great deal of progress the last few years. The culture at CPS and operations have greatly improved under Rudy's leadership, and we're very appreciative. The recent hire of Chief Strategy Officer Elena Ball, we're very appreciative and excited about. The RAC committee that wrapped up a couple of months ago was excellent community involvement and community work, and led by Dr. Cantu and Mr. Williams, produced a lot of good recommendations. A couple of years ago, you had a rate increase, which we understood the necessity for and reluctantly supported, despite the lack of rate reform. This time, we considered inexcusable to make another rate increase request without rate reform, true rate reform. You will see in Corey's presentations lots of commitments delivered, but no mention of rate reform. SAWS did a rate committee reform a few years ago where a expert, Dr. Manny Teodoro, clearly stated that bad rate design results in extreme stress to these populations in our city. And we see that, you continue to see that, and you'll see it again with Deanna's presentation. Huge efforts made to track these people down, whereas proper rate reform will eliminate most of that. And until you do that, we oppose any further movement with rate reform, with rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Joe Dunn, followed by Joe Garcia. Moving on to our next speaker, Joe Garcia, followed by Sally Avila.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Thank you for having me here, Mr. Mayor. My name is Joe Garcia, and I'm just a concerned citizen over the constant increases of our money being at the cost of our taxpayers. January, well, we've used, and the board has hit a target of 85 million. In January of 2022, we had a 3.85 increase, which went effective March 1st. A new request had been requested for the year of 2026, and also an increase of 5.5% for the fiscal year of 2027. Board, I know you have a tough job, and we know two things that we know about City of San Antonio, Bexar County, and South Texas. The growth, and we can't meet the demands of growth unless we get the new technology updated and so forth. I've read some countries and some cities in Texas or in the United States have come up with some new technology. They're in the same situation as us, replacement of old systems. Some included nuclear, which now systems in nuclear have been condensed, smaller, less waste, and more efficient. Why wouldn't it be feasible for the CPS to issue some kind of reward or grant to a winning bid of a technology that we have, the smart people here that can come up with a solution to address this issue? These increase is to the cost of the citizens of San Antonio are not acceptable. They're not going to be good. We need to get this down. All we're doing is kicking the can down the road, kind of like of our economy. We can't get a budget. We just increase, and no solve issue has been done. Please, Board, I bid that you address this for future references. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Sally Avila, followed by Dee Dee Balmores. Moving on to the next speaker, Dee Dee Balmores, followed by Jack Finger.
Good morning, Board. My name is Dee Dee Balmores, Clean Energy Advocate with Public Citizen. I would like to talk about the upcoming rate increase request This process is happening fast. The actual rate increase amount was announced just last week, and in a month, management will be asking you all and council for a vote. Right after Thanksgiving and before Christmas, Hanukkah, and all the other holidays that people celebrate. So happy holidays, CPS Energy customers. Utility is voting on raising your bills when you're worried about getting turkeys and presents for your kids. Customers are facing another rate increase, and still CPS Energy has yet to address rate structure. Even before the last increase, and since 2019, committee members have called on CPS Energy to consider tiered rates, a rate that would encourage conservation and make the heaviest users pay their fair share. A tiered rate is also an equitable way to recover costs. We could have rates that send price signals to customers to reduce usage during peak demand. It seems after a summer of record-setting temperatures and continuous calls for customers to reduce their use, that this utility would prioritize rates that would encourage conservation. The now defunct Rate Advisory Committee even gave you all, the board, feedback in the form of a survey that supported a tier rate and a time of use rate. We will continue to experience extremely hot summers. I'm calling on the board to hold management to a timeline to explore, at the very least, a pilot program on time of use or tiered rates. There is already a seasonal rate, why not expand it? This doesn't have to be stalled any longer, especially if there is another rate increase request coming in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Jack Finger, followed by Deborah Ponce.
Well, good morning, members of the City Public Service Board. Madam Chairman, other members, my name is Jack M. Finger, and first a little bit of housekeeping. Your rules about us signing up to speak at the meetings here, you're cutting us off about a day or two earlier. I'm sorry, other entities like the City of San Antonio and the Bexar County Commissioners allow people to sign up just minutes before the meetings begin. This is really the pits. And you really should, I've complained about this before, and I don't see anything happening about it, Madam Chair. And of course, Mayor Nurnberg, you're the one who's promoted transparency. I think you would want to allow citizens to do that. Also, the 2-minute limit, City Council, these gives us 3, so does the county commissioners. Why do the utility that we pay our dollars to have to cut us off? About this rate increase, I saw the article in the Express News a week or so ago. San Antonio City Council split on what to do with extra CPS Energy money in windfall years. It mentions that the amount of we're going to get is $421 million overage. $421 million from our 14%, and you still need a rate increase? Why does this not compute? The idea that you need to plan for increased growth, that should have been factored in. Yes, factored into our budget. The fact that you have pension problems, that should have been factored into your already big budget. The sustainability needs. Well, I'm sorry, if you looked at what has worked in the past, such as the coal-powered plants, that you're overlooking that, especially when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. Duh. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our final speaker is Deborah Ponce.
Hello, my name is Deborah Ponce. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning after all. I wanted to speak to this group that's going to make very important decisions that are going to affect me, the people that I serve, my family, my friends, and all of you. You all have family and friends too. I know that this decision isn't easy, but I need you to think about your own households. In my own household, I know, like, I was making at one time $20 an hour, and I still paid my house payment. I still paid for my computer system. I still paid for my phone. I still did all of those things. I have upgraded time and time again, when I got my income tax return, I'd go make an improvement, I'd make another improvement. I couldn't do it all at once. And so that's what I'm asking for CPS to do. You just raised our rates in the middle of a pandemic, when many of us weren't working. We all know that lots of things have gone up. And now, right now, after the hottest summer on earth, we're proposing raising rates again. And there's another one proposed in 2026, right? So I think that we need to slow this process down and take a look at what we have. What do we really need? Is there other alternatives that can be done, like the computer system upgrade? Can that be a budget item from the city of San Antonio to get that done? Why do my rates have to change forever because we're going to upgrade computer systems one year? It's like Hurricane Uri. Those repairs are done. What happened to that money? Can that money be used for the computer upgrades or for something else on this list? I really think we need to slow down and really think about this. And it's up to all of you. Think of a family member that doesn't have a whole lot and what it's going to do to them when these rates increase to this 4.25%. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. That was our last registered speaker. I will now turn the meeting back to Chair Gonzalez.
Thank you, everybody who's signed up to speak. Really appreciate your feedback. Again, good morning. Over the course of the past few months, I've had the opportunity to speak and participate with various stakeholders in the community to get their feedback on the CPS Energy and thoughts of the future. Here are a couple of common themes I've heard. Number one, we must not lose sight of those who are most vulnerable due to raising costs, not just in the economy, but potentially this rate increase. Number one. Number two, the need to continue to support economic development, especially in areas who have not seen economic development in quite some time. The plan for the future to address growing needs, both residential and commercial. The need for CPS Energy to protect the investments made by our community. And then the need to consider alternative ways to include the discussion of tier rates. All these things we've heard over the last couple of years, and more so recently. Through the few months, CPS Energy staff, they've provided us with thoughtful guidance on the challenges and opportunities that need to be addressed, driven by community engagement and public input. And I sincerely appreciate that. Staff have shared with us a timeline they are working through to keep us and this city and our community updated on the need for the rate requests. Now it's time, the board's direction, where they're coming to us with additional details. They're going to look to us for what that means and what that looks like moving forward. It is our responsibility to guide the organization through the energy transformation while we stay focused on our growing customer needs. Partnership with the City of San Antonio and SAWS are going to continue to be vital for our community and economic development goals. We must also continue to work together on reliability, resiliency, and affordability. The generation plan we approved earlier this year will get us through 2030, and we will need to continue discussions on how we power our communities into the future. Our current generation mix ensures that we have power to thrive as our community continues to attract new businesses and residents. And the mix, that includes renewables, traditional means of generation, and allows us for versatility and reliability when we need it the most. We also know that CPS has to continue to modernize our systems to serve customer needs while keeping them and their information safe. We must protect that. We're not at a time when we look closely at staff recommendations and ask the questions to help build CPS of the tomorrow, while aligning the broader view of what our city, our customers will look like in the future. These are important discussions, and I'm ready, along with my colleagues, through this process and conversations with the City of San Antonio and our community. I continue to encourage our community to be involved through this process and to be patient and to be open to what that future looks like. I want to thank you again for all of you who have participated, whether you've been part of the group, whether you come up every board meeting, you're here to let us know how you feel. All that feedback is really important to us. With that, I conclude, and I look forward to the rest of the agenda. Thank you very much. On that item, if we can go ahead and move to item number 5, let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, item number 5, which is FY 2020-25 rate request update.
Madam Chair,
Sorry, yes, sir.
that's okay. As Corey and Deanna get ready to make their presentations, I have a couple.
Please, I'm sorry about that.
I wanted
Yes.
to, no problem, ma'am. First off, I want to thank the CPS Energy team. They put a lot of work into, the process it takes, to go through budgets. I want to thank Eric and his team. They've spent a lot of time with us, probably over the last 12 months, but more specifically over the last 3 months, ensuring that, the justification is there and it's reasonable. The proposal here today has taken into account, the good year we've had from a wholesale perspective. And I think as our plants perform into the future and the opportunity is there, I think that, those revenues in the future, obviously have an impact on what future outlooks look like for CPS Energy from a revenue perspective. At the end of the day, and I've got a couple of folks in the audience that I'm just gonna ask to stand up and be recognized. We have 2 jobs here at CPS Energy: to provide the best electric service that we can provide for our community and meet the growth and future demand of our community, and to provide the best gas service that we possibly can for our community. Those are our only 2 charges, and to do that as affordably as we possibly can. I want to take a moment to recognize a couple of folks I asked to be here today. Kenny Byram, journeyman lineman from the Southwest District. He's been with us for 15 years, has a beautiful family, and he's a bright young star in our system. Kenny is out there, 24/7, 365, for us when the lights need to get back on. I also want to ask Blaine Sines, who's a journeyman in our corrosion control division on the gas side of our business. He's at Mission Road facility. He's been with us for 8 years. But, when we come and bring a case forward, which is never easy and is never done lightly, it is with the singular focus to ensure that our crews and our people have the resources they need to get their jobs done. And so with that, I will turn it over to Corey. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Chairwoman. Appreciate the introduction.
Through to my colleagues, is there any other additional comments by my colleagues? I skipped that. Mr. Steen? Okay. Okay, yes. Anybody? We're good?
Okay. Yeah, well, good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, trustees. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. 2 years ago, we talked about a multi-year rate plan, and we came forward to talk about what we need to achieve for our community and for our customers, and what's been asked of CPS Energy. Today is to talk about what we've delivered over the last 2 years and to talk about what those resources will be needed to continue on to the future to meet those expectations for CPS and our customers and the broader community. So with that, we have a pretty thorough agenda today. I'm going to share this agenda with Deanna Hardwick. I will cover the first part of the items relative to the request, and then Deanna will cover elements surrounding customer assistance programs, our outreach to our customers, and our communication that we're doing in the past and ongoing. So as an output of Rudy's tenure so far, he has worked with you, the Board of Trustees, to lay out a near-term vision. And the result is simplicity and clarity in what CPS Energy needs to focus on now and into the future for our customers. It's laid out pretty transparently here on this slide to focus on reliability, competitively priced products, focus on sustainable energy, and to approach all that in an equitable manner. So it is a balanced approach, and we're keeping it focused and tight. So everything you hear today that we've talked about is within that realm. So we've seen a slide like this before. Before I go any further, we'll take a step back for those who may just be tuning in. For context, these are the major touch points, both prior to today and going forward, that we're going to step through as part of this process. For the last 2 years, as I mentioned, we've broadly been discussing our ongoing financial requirements to meet the needs and the transition that CPS Energy needs to make. For the last couple of months, we've done several ongoing community outreach events. We've also had our community input working group meetings that had occurred prior to this. And today, we're meeting not just with the Board of Trustees today, but we'll go over to City Council this afternoon to bring forth our recommendation that we'll be discussing here. And ultimately, we'll go through this process between now and the last two bullets on that slide show us coming back to our Board of Trustees on December 4th, requesting approval, and at that point, we'll provide any input and feedback we received along the way with the recommendation. And similarly, we'll do the same with City Council on December 7th, and with their process as well. So that's kind of what the landscape looks like, kind of before today and going through early December. So this slide, there's a lot on this slide, but over the course of the last 2 years, CPS Energy has followed through on many of the commitments that we've talked about, that the community asked us about. And obviously there's more to do going forward, but a few that I'll just call out and highlight, involve one of the biggest items, which was setting out a generation plan for CPS Energy and the community that this Board of Trustees worked through in conjunction with the Ray Advisory Committee and approved earlier this year. As we've talked about at length before, we have a new Sustainability Tomorrow Energy Plan, which focuses on various energy efficiency programs, which ultimately has a beneficial effect on not just the community, but the individuals that participate. We've expanded our equity-focused programs and outreach, and that's been a big part of the feedback we've gotten from the community over the last couple of years, and we're going to continue to make that a focus. We did complete the operational efficiency assessment that was talked about 2 years ago, and we've refined our future state technology platform plan, which is an item that we've talked about in the past, and we're going to continue to talk about. This is in reference to those IT systems that will help take us into the future and provide those products and services that our customers are expecting from us, and that we do want to provide. So in terms of where and how we've spent the investments from the last rate request, well, they're going to many items that ultimately add value for our customers. And on the left-hand side is really the summary of what the customer would feel from all the different work that had been done. The main one is about customers seeing a reduced likelihood and impact of outages. And there's a lot of things on that list around reliability and resiliency. Some you see in the community, some you don't. You may see us out there replacing poles. We're doing that at a faster clip than we have in the past. You may not see us repairing leaks, but we are out in the community doing those. So there's a number of items where those dollars from last rate requests continue to go as we do our job. And obviously, investments towards ensuring that our customers are connected and that we have sufficient generation needs for our community. There's a lot of work under that community and system growth that is necessary, that we've put those dollars to work for. And then the third one, which is big, and we've talked about it, is enhancing our customer experience. And this is where I've said it before, and I'll say it again during this presentation, the investment into our enterprise IT systems. So this is, and Evan has talked about this in the past, this is replacing the backbone infrastructure that CPS Energy has run on for decades. And we look forward to completing this project that we started a couple years ago because of the fact that it will allow us to provide that engagement with our customers in a way that they've been asking for. And ultimately, we're a utility, and it takes people to do our business. And we have focused on shoring up our staffing over the last couple of years. And if you've lived here, you know the speed of growth that this community has seen. And in order to keep up with that, we need folks to get that job done. And in terms of folks on the front line, folks they don't show up and just get in a bucket truck and start doing work. It takes time to get them in the pipeline, to get them trained up. And that is the work that our team has been doing over the last couple of years that we're going to be focused on for years to come. Okay, so going forward, we still maintain that ongoing rate support will be necessary to meet the customer needs that we've talked about in the community for the last couple of years. However, as Rudy alluded to in his opening comments, this year's strong performance in the wholesale market has allowed us to come forward with a recommendation of 4.25% for a base rate increase. This is in comparison to the prior forecast that we had flashed of 5.5%. Now, the corresponding annual revenue that would be generated by this 4.25% is approximately $85 million. Now we have a slide in here that talks about our strong operational performance which has netted us about $130 million, and you can see noted on this slide. That in part has enabled our lower request of 4.25%. And on this slide here, it is planned to be applied broadly towards a few things that I'll speak about here. Over half of that we have under the category of reinvesting in our system. Some things that I think jump off the page, reinvesting in our generation plants. Those were the main piece of equipment that we had this summer that helped enable that additional performance, and they ran harder than they had all year long, and they ran longer than we had expected. So reinvestment in those capital assets makes a lot of sense for our community broadly. Other reliability improvements that we can help pull forward in our budget and fund with cash will help service reliability for our customers. And these are things like circuit controls, additional poles that we can replace faster. These are all things that broadly can help us enable less borrowing, which is noted on that bullet. The collective impact of what I just explained can help us bring down the requests that we're asking for in the near term. And so that's a real benefit, not just to the customer, but it's a benefit to our overall financial position. Another element that we wanted to focus on was our customers. We have talked a lot about our outreach that we do for our customers, and one of the things that we can do with these dollars is contribute to our Residential Energy Assistance Partnership, affectionately known as REAP. We have $10 million noted on the slide here. For context, $10 million is nearly doubling the amount of dollars that are in that program today, which has the opportunity to help thousands more customers get assistance on their bills over the coming years. And the last item is actually a new market requirement. As you know, we are faced with regulatory requirements for multiple agencies constantly. There was a regulatory requirement that manifests itself over the course of this year, and as it turned out, resulted in approximately $50 million for us to address that item. And so instead of having to put that in any future budget requests, we believe that using these one-time funds allows us to address that issue without having to burden our customers going forward. So I took some time on this slide to give some context to kind of how those dollars are being applied and connecting the dots as to how this helped bring down and enable a lower recommendation. So as we circle back to the 4.25 and in aggregate the $85 million of incremental annual revenue that we're talking about, this slide shows very similarly the four categories that we've talked about consistently where our dollars are being invested in. And when I talked about the beginning, we're having clarity on our focus, we're staying focused on these same four areas. Reliability and resiliency continue to be a number one item that our customers are focused on. And there are dollars that in the last rate request went towards items in this category, and there continue to be dollars in this category that we're going to put dollar towards. A lot of it is around ensuring that the local infrastructure continues to remain strong and resilient for our customers. Some of it is towards the initiation of the design engineering for our generation plan that I spoke about earlier. But a big part of reliability and resiliency is going to be the materials and equipment to get the job done. And I noted there in the last bullet, and we've talked about this at previous meetings, the inflationary pressures that we've all seen globally over the last couple of years have hit CPS Energy as well. So your transformers, your meters, all the things that we need to do our day-to-day job, those elements of inflation are included in that 4.25 rate request. But up until now, we have absorbed those inflationary impacts in our budget over the last 2 years. The second item there, we can't talk about it enough. These are dollars that are going directly to the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure that we've talked about. Now, we talked about this 2 years ago, and Evan can give more details, but this was a 5 to 6 year project. An organization as large as ours doesn't just do a system reboot or refresh in 6 months. And so this has been a long path that we're going to be working towards, and there are dollars here that go towards that. And there's no denying that we are critical infrastructure. CPS Energy is a critical infrastructure, and we have seen both the physical and the cybersecurity threats increase, and so we continue to be focused on those efforts and put dollars towards that in this request. And the last two items around growth, there's both customer growth and system growth, and all of that is included in here, but meeting the needs of our customers is an obligation, and that's what we need to do for the community. Part of this, these dollars will go towards that and ensuring that we have the appropriate power for all of our community, ensuring that the power flows consistently across our community, no matter if you've been here for 1 year or if you've been here for 20 years. We all benefit from that. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a business about people. This is about folks being able to get out in the field and manage our equipment. And so we'll continue to be focused and put dollars towards hiring and retaining the new generation of workforce. Okay, so on this next slide, these are the metrics that we've come to be familiar with. A revised edition was put on your desk prior to the meeting, and that's the same one shown on the screen today. With this recommended request, we do forecast adequate financial health that continues to provide stability for CPS Energy and ultimately for the community that owns us. So I'll point out, like I have in the past on this slide, about the rating agencies and what they look at. And the rating agencies will look at us from a total view of all of our metrics. And it's true, and we've said this before, we are entering a period of high investment. Even with routine rate increases over time, you will see additional impact on our debt metrics. However, the debt metric isn't the only metric. We forecast stability in our coverage ratios and our liquidity ratios to offset pressure from this debt to capitalization pressure that we may be feeling going forward. It's about taking a balanced approach on this slide, and this has been the lens through which we've looked at this. As you do look at these metrics, the first one is our coverage ratio. I'll spend some time on this. If you look at it, it remains greater than 1.50 and within the 1.50 to 2.0 range for the next 2 years, which is consistent with the range that we would want to focus on. And if you go out over a 5-year horizon, I will share that we believe that remains within that range as well. We do see increasing pressure on that debt to capitalization ratio in the next 2 years, showing just under 63% in fiscal year 26. And over a 5-year horizon, while that timing is more uncertain, we continue to see pressure on that particular metric into the 67%. But we believe, as I've said before, given our upcoming investment profile and continuing strong liquidity strength and coverage strength, which is demonstrated here, it can be an offset to that pressure. And lastly, you can see adequate liquidity for days cash on hand of greater than 150 days for both the 2 years. We target between the 150 to 200 days range, and over a 5-year horizon, we remain comfortably in that range. And for context for those listening, that still remains to be about $1 billion to $1.2 billion over the given 5 years in terms of cash on hand. So it is still a significant amount of liquidity that we have available to buffer any unexpected challenges. So on this slide, we have a view of all of our customer impacts, not just the residential. And across the board, you can see that the total bill impact from this rate request ranges from 2.7% to 3.1%, depending on which customer group you are in. And if you focus on the residential group at the very top there, combined, you can see that they're on the lower end of that range at 2.7% from a total bill impact, and that translates to about $4.45 per month for an average residential customer usage. Now, on this slide, I will point out, what we are showing here from a bill impact perspective is only for customers that do not qualify for any of our customer assistance programs. So to the extent a customer does qualify, their bill impact would be lessened. And Deanna's going to talk more about those programs and offerings we have to customers that can help mitigate this pressure for customers. So the other item of this request, it's financial in nature, but unlike any previous discussions of a regulatory asset, this is an accounting-driven change, and that is what's noted on this slide. This is not a recommendation for a regulatory asset that does anything other than enable us to address an accounting item. This change will not increase customer bills and does not have a bill impact, but I did want to make that clear on this slide. And as we look going forward, as we've mentioned right now for fiscal 25, 4.25 is the recommendation that we're starting this conversation with. Probably the most important point on this slide is that, the bullet number 1, is that our financial plan does include a rate evaluation every 2 years, but we do that to reconcile what our future needs are in that moment of time. And so while we're showing a number for fiscal '27, again, anything past fiscal '25 is subject to change, much like this request has gone down from 5.5 to 4.25. So on that note, I want to transition to the next part of the presentation for Deanna, and she'll focus on the customer assistance and outreach component.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, members of the board. And as Corey mentioned, I'll be sharing updates as well as our plans to connect and engage with our customers and our community. First off, I want to talk about who we are as part of San Antonio. We have a strong sense of community, and that purpose drives us as well here at CPS Energy. With the responsibility to provide gas and electric services to over 900,000 homes and businesses in the greater San Antonio area, we understand the magnitude of our role. It's ultimately to provide gas and electric services to our customer base, where we have approximately 70% of our customers that reside and work within San Antonio, and 30% that reside in the suburban cities and counties that surround us and that we get to support. And that includes everyone from the most vulnerable members of our community to the dedicated individuals of Joint Base San Antonio who serve our country. And we recognize the importance of improving their lives and businesses with providing the reliable and resilient power that they expect. Additionally, as we talked about as part of our mission, it is part of our DNA as well to follow through on our commitment to support community equity. And so we have listened to your concerns, and we know it's important to understand the impacts of these needed changes on our community members. We've also understood and heard you when you say, how will we assist customers that are currently facing difficulties paying their bills, as well as managing their past due balances? And in response, you see the plan here. And what this represents are the changes that we are recommending. So for our affordability discount program, or we call it ADP, what we are proposing that we do is the standard, what we've always done, which is increase and offset half of the increase for those that are enrolled in ADP. So for electric-only customers, that discount will now be a total of $13.48. And for gas and electric customers, it'll be $18.36. Additionally, we are expanding the program to include at least an additional 15,000 residential customers. And so that represents in total 10% of our residential customer base that would be eligible to receive ADP. Additionally, now that we are able to identify those that are most severely impacted by energy burden, we're expanding the qualifications to those who are experiencing a severe energy burden, which is 10% of their energy bill their total income represented 10% is their energy burden. And so through the enhanced data analysis, as well as the partnerships that we have across the community, we will ensure the enrollment of eligible customers, much like we did last time when we increased and we were able to enroll the additional customers within the year. And importantly, what we wanted to highlight was the cost that this is going to have to the average customer. So on average right now, ADP costs the average residential customer about 60 cents per month. And to fund this, it's going to raise that by 23 cents. So the average residential customer would be paying about 83 cents per month to support our affordability discount program. And what we wanted to also highlight is our affordability discount program is just one of the many programs that we have available to support our community. So REAP, which Corey spoke about before, is something we're very proud to partner with the community in the city and the county in order to connect customers with support. We also have rebates for helping those who participate in lessening their impact on the grid, as well as controlling their own costs, so ultimately they can save money on their bills, as well as get a rebate from us. We also have additional billing programs for our senior citizens and those that are on disability, so if they need more time to pay their bill, we can work with them by putting them on one of these programs. On top of that, I want to highlight some of the payment plan programs that we have. We do have flexible payment programs, which are no interest and no fees, and we work with each customer based on what their needs are in order to spread out their past due amount. And then there's budget payment plan, We continue to have customers ask us, well, what's the impact on me in July versus the impact in December? And one of the best highlights or best programs that we have that customers consistently tell us is our budget payment program, where we average your last 12 months of usage and then set a consistent amount for those that are on a fixed income. We can help them budget and go through the year, as well as find additional resources. And we also recognize that this issue extends beyond just our organization. And that's why we continue to be committed to partnering with the community. We have longstanding partners you see highlighted here. We have ACOG, the Food Bank, United Way, and we're always looking for additional partners. And one of the new ones that we were able to partner with this year was Alamo Workforce Solutions. So the more that we can connect with our community partners, the more we can have resources that will help those that need the most help. And it's not just for San Antonio, but it's also for the surrounding counties and suburban cities that we have. Another thing.
I just want to remind, the board, through this network of assistance, we were upwards of $85 million of direct payment assistance to customers last year, which was just phenomenal. There's no utility company in the country that's as aggressive, as we are at this process. So I want to punctuate it because these things don't just happen. They happen because Dee's team is focused in the right ways.
Thank you, Rudy. And, that's exactly what we wanted to highlight here. Right? We, over the last 2 years, or since the last rate case, we've had almost 5,000 community engagements. And that is going out to the community, finding those customers that need assistance. We've been able to engage with and do case management for about 3,000 homes and small businesses where we provide ongoing support. We know it's not just a once and done. Additionally, we've been able to visit over 100 neighborhoods and knocked on over 10,000 or close to 10,000 homes to be able to bring all of this partnership together. And since the last rate case, it's about $83 million that we've been able to partner with the community and reduce the impact that the most vulnerable have been experiencing as a result of the weather and their energy needs. And we also continue to be dedicated to bring CPS Energy directly to the community. And we know that customers want to understand what their personal or what their business impact is going to be as a result of this rate increase. And ultimately, they also want to know, what do we have out there that can help them? And that happens through one-on-one conversations. So we want to reassure you that we do have a comprehensive outreach plan. And this is a living calendar, and it changes as we get invited to additional events or as we find different opportunities to go engage. But it's not just these items here. We also have toolkits to be able to share with officials, and we'll share one with you as well, to be able to have the information. We'll have pop-up events and show up wherever we can or wherever we're invited. We have engagements scheduled with our small businesses. We're also going to do a direct mailing based on what our customer preferences are. A large majority of our customers prefer to get any communications from us via email, but we know that there is a chunk of people that prefer it via mail. So we'll make sure that information related to the rate increase will be mailed based on their preference. And we just ask if there's a specific homeowners association, event, location, anywhere that you would like for us to be or that you would like to join us, we welcome to have you there. We'd be happy to have you there. So here is where you'll see a copy of what the mailing will be on the left side. And on the right side, it is what we've developed is a user-friendly website so customers can go through and go online and understand what the impacts will be directly to them. You'll see here there is an estimate my bill, so customers will be able to answer a few questions as well and then find out what their specific impact will be. And we know not everybody has access to the internet, so that's where having people attend our fairs or call us over the phone gives us the opportunity through those one-on-one interactions to provide them with the same information that you see available on our website. And ultimately, our approach is just to effectively communicate the impact that these proposed changes will have, as well as provide the necessary support to help customers figure out how to budget and move forward. We also recognize the importance of reaching our Spanish-speaking community members, and we've taken the initiative to translate all materials into Spanish, and we understand that accessibility is critical, and so we want to make sure that everyone can have access to the information that they both want and need. And as always, we value the impact that we get, or the input that we get from our community and from you as our board, and we do make it a priority to gather feedback. So to facilitate this, we have everything, when you see our QR code there, we'll share the website links, we'll have surveys at our events and our walk-in centers, and we want to continue to find ways to hear your thoughts and concerns, and we are committed to do everything we can to incorporate and improve where possible. And then we know there's other ways some people like real-time updates, and having that information is crucial to many customers. And we invite customers to follow us online or through the many social media channels, because we know that everybody has a different preference, and we're trying to reach as many customers as we possibly can. So in closing, just want to emphasize some of the points that Corey made. We have been talking about the need for ongoing investment in our system and for our community as the community-owned utility. And it is a multi-year journey, and this is just continuing that journey. As Corey mentioned, the investment that we were able to have in the last rate increase allowed for us to have a lot of the required maintenance in our power plants so that we could have a strong summer and be able to offset that rate increase. But we must continue to protect the investment and prevent it from becoming a liability. And we need to invest in the developing and executing on that plan that the community told us for a new generation plan and that the board has approved. As we've talked about, we have to replace outdated technology. We implemented that at the turn of the century, and we need to find better ways to provide customers with the information that they expect, provide our employees with the tools that they need, and ultimately be able to provide the power in the way that customers want. And all of these investments will benefit not only our customers, but also our dedicated employees. And, we have over 3,000 employees. They're proud to work here. And it's not just us that you see every day. It is our field workers. It's the people in our walk-in centers. It's the people at our community fairs. And we're all in this together because Rudy has worked to focus on the one team effort internally and externally. And with that, we know that together we can ensure a brighter and more sustainable future for San Antonio. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. On that note, does the board have any questions or comments? Dr. Romero?
Okay. I guess, Deanna, maybe I'll ask some questions of you first.
Yes, ma'am.
So just want to confirm this. For a customer who's in an assistance program, who's for electric and gas combined, they will have an increase of $2.22, which means that the overall rate increase they will have is about $2.23. So the rate increase is about half.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it comes down to a little over $2.
Yes, ma'am.
When I was looking at some of the, I want to thank the Community Input Working Group, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, and I did try to watch your meetings. I was working backwards until I ran out of time. I noticed that Anacua Garcia had made some suggestions about the Spanish translations, that maybe they were overly formalized and not in keeping with how people normally talk. So were any changes made in response to those suggestions?
Yes, we did make we did take those suggestions, and we had a few more reviews done to clean up the language and make sure that it is both appropriate as well as understandable for our standard Spanish-speaking population here.
Okay, great, thank you. The only other thing, I know you're doing so much, and I also want to, I really appreciate what you said, so I wrote it down. We understand the magnitude of our role, and I just hope everybody understands that everybody in this company understands the magnitude of their role, no matter what it is they're doing. And I hope that comes through to our customers, because it's really true. On the main webpage, and I tried it yesterday and I tried it today, and there's different tiles and they're all helpful, but I'm not seeing one that just says like what the rate increase proposal is all about. Could we get that on there? Because that's where people are going to go. I mean, there's a million choices, but I bet 90% of people who say, I'd like to know more about this, are just going to go to CPS, just Google CPS Energy, get to the homepage, and it's not there.
Yes, ma'am. We do plan on, that might be live right now. It was being programmed today, so it might be live right now. But we'll double check to make sure that it is front and center and simple to get through.
Okay, thank you. I had a question for Corey. When we talk about an increase in the base rate, on the bill, that is shown as service availability charge, correct?
It's your service availability and your energy charge. What it excludes is the fuel adjustment charge that stands out, and it excludes the regulatory adjustment on your bill, and it will exclude any of the related city charges that are on the bottom too. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, maybe that's something that could be made more clear to people, because and what I really appreciate is on the homepage, there's a tile that says understanding your bill, and I love that.
Yeah.
But I think if people want to look at that, and you're saying the base rate's going to increase, they're going to look at their bill and say, I don't see base rate here, so I don't understand what's increasing.
Good feedback. We can include that going forward to connect the dot.
And then, I guess I just wanted to talk about slide 9 for a second. I want to say this. When I watched one of the meetings of the group, and when they saw slide 9, coal plant retirement was under reliability and resiliency. And they asked for it to be removed and talked about how we wouldn't want the rate increase to be misunderstood as something that's supporting decarbonization. But we are moving towards decarbonization. We have the generation plan. We all agreed on that. We're moving forward on that. So I guess I would just like a little bit of a response on that. I don't want to be sugarcoating this, right? Not that it would be sugarcoating it to say it's a good thing, I think, to get rid of the coal plants. So I guess I just like a little feedback on that.
A lot of the conversation that was had at the community input session, which were wonderful, and I haven't had a chance to publicly thank everybody who served on that committee, but again, they did, they spent hours with us. So I just want to extend my thanks to everybody who participated in that process, internally and externally. They really were trying to give us feedback on what might be kind of hot button issues, depending upon what perspective you bring to the table. And the reality of our plan is that we are looking at new generation technology. So it's all in that bullet of new generation technologies and kind of moving forward in our generation plan. But again, our ability to move forward with decarbonizing our fleet is absolutely impacted by our ability to get the resources we need to do this work. It's these are the things the community asked of us. And so, to your point, Dr. Romero, we will be talking about that. I talk about it every time I go to a community group, on what these, these requests are driving towards. But I mean, our ability to move forward with moving away from Spruce 2, absolutely impacted by our ability to get the support we need on resources. So, point well taken. We're getting feedback on both sides of that, but I do think we need to make it clear that is part of our plan.
Okay, thank you. And I will not ever shy away from saying, I think we need to move towards decarbonization, and I voted for it several times. Okay, this is my last question. I don't know if it's for you or Deanna, because several people in the audience talked about rate structure and how can you discuss a rate increase without going through rate structure. But we did go through rate structure. We went through rate structure with the RAC, and I know people weren't happy with it. It seems to me that of all the things we discussed, and I think we discussed anything the citizens put on the table through that process, Some of them were accepted. Some of them were just not feasible given our current technology, which underlines how much we need the technology and security piece. And some of them, frankly, were illegal. And we had a good briefing on that. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to that a little bit. And again, I know, citizens might not be happy with everything, but I want to remind everybody that we went through a lot of these ideas for rate structure changes.
We did very much, and there's probably a trifecta of folks that could speak to it. But yes, you mentioned, Dr. Romero, all the three items, both legal, IT, and the feedback we got. And so, Elena, would you like to add to that?
Sure. And Elena Ball, the Chief Strategy Officer for CPS Energy. Yes, ma'am, I can. So it's a terrific question about rate design and rate structure. How rate structure can help our customers help themselves and help the grid in the future is essentially sending price signals during periods where there's excessive demand, excessive heat, just like we had this summer. Right now, we're using fairly low-tech means to convey that through appeals for conservation and messages. As we upgrade our systems, right now we mentioned a 20-year-old system, we don't have the ability to create the granularity of messaging in order to help customers with time of use and with peak period pricing. As we upgrade our systems, not only for residential customers, but also commercial customers, we want to be able to not only provide tiered structures as well as time of use, we also want to offer unique products and services where our customers may say, based on my preferences, I would like to have additional clean energy. We are hearing that from a lot of our large commercial customers. All of these kinds of rate design and rate restructuring have to be enabled with systems that can allow us to price those. So what you see before you relative to technology and security, it is absolutely the first step we have to take, which is replace our antiquated systems that do not have the ability to send those price signals. So it's a first step, but as a leadership team, we 100% are behind considering rate design and embedding it ultimately to allow our customers to make choices to help their bills, to make sustainable decisions that they want to make relative to their energy consumption, and ultimately to allow us to manage our use as a community and the grid in the lowest cost method for this region. Does that help?
Yes, that was a really good answer. Thank you. I appreciate that
Certainly.
As a surprise question. Thank you. That was a really, really good answer. I appreciate it. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Romero. Mr. Steen?
So, Mr. Kaczynski, thank you for your financial health presentation today. And if someone would please put up slide 10. And this, of course, delineates the big three financial metrics, which are so important to our credit rating agencies, Fitch, S&P, and Moody's. And by way of reminder, in the aftermath of Winter Storm Uri, CPS Energy was hit with credit downgrades from Fitch and S&P. Later, after our last rate case, Moody's followed suit and also downgraded us. Despite the fact that we're approaching the 3-year anniversary of that event, CPS Energy's higher ratings still haven't been restored. Importantly, it's definitely adverse that our outlooks are negative for both Fitch and S&P. Moody's outlook is stable. And just to remind you, many of you know this, outlooks are used to indicate a credit rating agency's view toward the likelihood of a rating change, and in most cases, the probable direction of that change. A stable outlook is a sign when the agency believes that its rating is not likely to be changed. A negative outlook indicates a rating may be lowered. Of course, at the very minimum, we need to be setting our sights on positive, which indicates a rating that may be raised. So let's look at this slide closely. And for those listening in, notice it's labeled financial health. That's because the business community views these three metrics as a snapshot of CPS Energy's well-being in the same way that one might visit the doctor and rather than get an extensive, detailed report on one's health, for the sake of simplicity and focus, one might get a snapshot with only 3 markers, let's say blood pressure, resting heart rate, and cholesterol level. Further, one should keep in mind the three words, with rate support. That is, these are numbers that assume the base rate increase that's before us will be implemented. So, examining the slide closely, in regard to debt service coverage ratio, which is DSCR, which it's a credit metric used to understand how easily a company's cash flow can cover its annual interest and principal obligations. The threshold is 1.5, and the higher the better. And so attaining, as it says up there, a DSR of 1.67 in fiscal year 2025 and 1.77 in fiscal year 2026 would be a positive development. However, the debt capitalization ratio, DCR, is problematic. The first one was a credit metric. This is a leverage metric that measures the total amount of outstanding company debt as a percentage of total capitalization. I'm sorry, but despite what management has been advising us lately, the threshold is 60%, and I'll repeat, 60%. And in this instance, the lower the better. And frankly, it shows me that even with the proposed base rate increase of 4.25% baked in, management is telling us this figure will be 61.7% in fiscal year 2025 and 62.9% for fiscal year 2026, so it's clearly out of kilter. In a sense, the 63% for fiscal 2026 is a harbinger for management arguing for another base rate increase 2 years down the road. Finally, there's the days cash on hand, and I said the first one is credit metric, second leverage. This is a liquidity metric that measures the number of days that a company can continue paying its operating expenses with the amount of cash currently available. So if revenue suddenly dried up or an unexpected catastrophe interrupted the business, a company with substantial cash on hand would be able to keep running longer without incurring additional debt or having to raise additional funds. On the surface, the anticipated DCOH numbers of 188 for fiscal year 2025 and 176 for 2026 seem acceptable unless one examines the trend over the years. And so here's a brief history of our days cash on hand numbers, and remember, the higher the better. So fiscal year 2019, it was 246. Fiscal year 2020, it was 225. Fiscal year 2021, it was 209. Fiscal year 2022, 182. Fiscal year 2023, it was 166. And we're in the middle of fiscal year 2024, toward the end actually, it's 159. I think that's the year-to-date actual. So if someone would put up slide 32. And so if you look at the descending trajectory of daily cash on hand, it's in the graph in the upper right-hand corner. And so one can clearly see the downward trend in days cash on hand. Granted approval of the proposed 4.25% base rate increase will begin to reverse this trend, but it's a long way from the 246 number we had as recently as 5 years ago. So those are my comments on the financial health. That's all I have today on that. I'll have more to say as this discussion continues leading to our board's vote on December 4th. Madam Chair, I have other comments and questions, but I'll pause at this point and let other trustees jump in if they wish.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. I believe it's Dr. Mackey now?
Yes.
And after Dr. Mackey will be the mayor, and then back to Dr. Romero.
Thank you. Corey, if you could stay up here for a minute before I get to you. I'm looking at on page 11, slide 9, but just keep that slide right there up there for a minute. Page 11, the use of the rate increase, reliability and efficient power sources, new generation technology, begin gas peakers, and all these things that we're doing. Y'all did a great job outlining all this stuff. I appreciate it. The question I have for you, did you call every board member and review all of this stuff like you did me on that stuff?
Yes, we offered a time for everybody, and we met with and talked with everyone.
You did. So everybody, every board member went over this information.
Yes.
Okay,
I
good,
think
good,
Dr.
good. I
Romero,
just wanna
we
make
talked
sure
on the phone briefly.
Okay, thank you, thank you. You cleared up a lot for me on this, so, and thank you for doing that, meeting with all of us and reviewing all this. So this is not the first time we've looked at this. Every board has reviewed all of this in the last week or so, so thank you for that right there. And I look at that, where replacement of a 20-year-old system. You know, I listen to people come up here and talk about old systems, but I don't see them driving a 20-year-old car. I don't see that happening. You know, we have, and I talk about updating stuff, we still have to update things. You know, you have households, you have computer systems, you update it. We have to find a way to update it to meet the demands of this community. However, when you go into number 32, financial metrics, and we talk about the health of the, you know, when I look at the adjustment debt coverage back in 2015, it was 188, 187, fiscal year 17, 170, you know, and then it went to 176 in 2.0 and 194. You look at it all the way across to 2021, yes, there was a downward spiral, and it looks like we're going back up, starting in 2021 to 2022, up to 189 in 2023. Then you go to the debt capitalization ratio. We look at that, and, you know, good job. In 2015, it was 60.8. If we look at the best year, it was fiscal year 2020. However, you look at the next best years, you know, at 2021, 2015, and you look at 2024, it's 609. So, you know, we're around the same area, same category. We're looking at that. It's not any major change, and I know the rating agencies look at all of this stuff. Then we go to cash on hand. I'm looking at, you look at 2015, it was 191, but 2024, we're looking at going 198. You look at 2016, 203, and 2017, 197. And then you look at it, you know, creeping up, and you look at it where it peaked out at 246. 246. Corey, I want to ask you a question. How many years have you been with this company?
17.
17 years. What year did we build this building? We started working on it and paying for this building.
Guess it was 18 or 19?
18, 19. And what did we pay for this building with? Majority of what?
Cash.
Cash money. So when you start going to your cash on hand and you start using cash money, of course it's going to go down. Am I right? We use cash money, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then it started going down. We used cash money to build this building, and then we sold some facilities which did not match what it cost to build this building. So I've been listening to this for 2 years, and I was here when we voted on using, no, I wasn't here when you voted on using cash money. It came after me. But I was here when we went through the process. We used the majority of the cash money, which affect debt capitalization. It affects that. See, it is not only by itself, but it affects that. So we use the cash on hand for this project. And all of a sudden, you see it go down? Yes, because we paid the majority of the cash that we had for this building. Now we finally regrouping in 2023 because of what we paid. Now we begin to go back up a little bit. So don't forget that we paid for this building with cash, and a few buildings that we sold that didn't meet the full obligation, you know, and took a lot of cash on hand. So when I look at this and this comes up, I'm not complaining about it, because guess what? We're sitting in a wonderful building. I appreciate that. But I don't want to forget that we paid the cash that we would normally have when Mr. Garza came aboard. That cash was gone. Now, he has to come up with a plan, he and his staff, and how to rebuild that. And that credit, because cash on hand affects the credit agency. But we used that, and we made that decision. So I'm pleased with the progress, see some progress that we're going, pleased with it. I know we have work to go, and we have to continue to work on these things. But, you know, these are some concerns that I have, and just let the staff know, you're doing a wonderful job trying to turn this around, this ship around, because we know at one time we were going down some, but keep working hard and keep bringing it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McNamee. Mayor?
Sure. Thank you very much, Deanne and Corey, for the presentation. I'll just have a few questions. But first, I would like to pick up on the patient theme, and I appreciate that metaphor on the slide with the major metrics, debt capitalization, et cetera, because no one would argue, I would say, particularly in the community, that when the patient came in roughly after Winter Storm Uri, it was not well. This organization had problems, and we've had our hands full trying to deal with those problems, but I do see an inflection point has occurred, and with additional revenue support, we've been able to make the investments on resiliency. We've been able to move forward our generation plan. We've made additional investments in affordability programs, et cetera. So I am confident that if we continue the course, we will, in all due course, start to see that reflected in our ratings, that also reflected in our financial metrics as well. Reminds me of the advice I didn't take from my doctor about resting my shoulder, more interested in, continuing to strengthen and all that stuff, and ended up, a couple months later having to get a shot and totally shutting down. We don't want to end up in that situation. We've got to continue to work at this and continue to do what we need to do to support the agency and make those investments. And one of the critical ones that we have been talking about for some time is the electrical, I forget what word, the ERP, as well as the generation plan that we did vote on, and that I'm happy is moving forward. So if we could go quickly to slide 13. So I'd like to understand a little bit of this because, the last rate increase that happened 2 years ago that was approved came after 8 years of no adjustments, and obviously that caught up with us. And we were anticipating, based on that conversation, that we would be back here and you would be roughly in the 5.5% range asking for that adjustment. So tell me what happened operationally, why the adjustment you're requesting now is 4.25 as opposed to the 5.5 that you had projected.
Mayor, before I turn it over to Corey, I just want to respond as to our strategy. 2 years ago, we started out with a number that was double digits, if you remember, because we knew we had a horizon of significant investment we were going to have to make to stabilize the organization and to kind of move into the future. And 2 years ago, the way we got from double digits to 3.85% really was to start focusing on the knowns. If our strategy was to come in every 2 years, let's focus on the knowns in that 2-year period so that when we came back, we'd reconcile what we thought we were going to spend versus what we spent, and then move into the future, in terms of the investments that were necessary. So overall, that overall strategy allows us, to kind of, find, sharpen our pencil on that number, every 2 years to ensure that we're focused on what we know. So that was kind of the overarching strategy that really allowed us to go, we could probably justify a double-digit rate increase today if we really worked hard enough at it. But because we feel like we've got a good strategy of coming in more frequently, then the increases shouldn't necessarily need to be double digits at a time. And so fundamentally, I wanted to start there. But Corey, talk a little bit about the assumptions and how we, tweak assumptions that drive our revenue model that allow us to get to a number.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, Rudy, you're right in terms of revisiting assumptions, every year. The big headline and driver for this year in particular, Mayor, as you know, is the wholesale revenue. We do not have assumptions built in there to have all-time record sales in the wholesale market. We just don't. You wouldn't plan that way because it's volatile and it's one-time in nature. So with that item in particular, we applied those in a manner we thought was responsible, one-time elements, but also in ways that could help defer borrowing. And when you work those assumptions in, that enabled us to ask for a slightly lower amount and still have the metrics that you pointed out that we have. And so that's kind of a high level on the revenue side. And on the expense side, there's just a lot that changes over the course of 2 years. And kind of point one was what Rudy mentioned. We hadn't layered in a lot of the things at the time that weren't known. The generation plan, the balance of the ERP system that you mentioned, sir. We had only funded the first 2 years to that. So those estimates got layered in there. And then on a go-forward basis, you're constantly looking at what growth organically is doing in your community. And some of the organic growth is paying for itself that has enabled us to, be able to have a request that looks like this. So there's a lot on the revenue side and on the expense side that's layered in and been different. But I think Rudy's point is true. We have to have this conversation much more frequently with the community. And taking a balanced approach that we're doing allows us to stay within this band of kind of reasonableness that can still achieve the goals that we all want. Hopefully that helps, sir.
No, it makes sense. And, we heard the comment today that, can you slow down? And, I do think about that. What is that speed at which we can move forward in this? If you say, Rudy, you have things that this organization needs to invest in to do its basic service that could justify a double-digit rate increase, I'm asking, why isn't it up there? It's because you are building into your budget in the future that we will be slow and steady as it relates to revenue.
Correct.
Revenue requirements. Okay, so now that I see that, we're basically telling the community then, this is a moderate rate adjustment. The expenses that we are building in based on community input, and I'm going to ask you to answer a question real quick, Deanna. Nobody likes to increase rates. I hate it every time I get a notice in my email about some private company that I've subscribed to, and they're choosing to raise their rates. In this case, we own the agency that's increasing the rates. We got to have really good justification for that because our customers are also our owners. So I look at that and I understand the revenue side of it. Show me the expense side of it, because if we're telling the community this is a moderate increase, we could see a huge increase and then stay silent for a while. But we're planning steady, slow and steady. We're saying we're going to be back here for FY27 to ask for, again, a slow and steady increase, another step. Show me the other side of it. I'd like to see the expenses that we're playing into it. I know that's a question for Deanna, because Deanna, I want you to tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from all the community input conversations. I'm sure no one is saying, hey, love the rate increase. But we are saying, I'm assuming, people are saying, yes, we need new capacity so the lights stay on when it's 105 degrees outside. Yes, I want time of use rates. I got an earful from my dad 2 days ago about that. Yes, we want to make sure that we're investing in affordability programs so our most cost-burdened customers are. I assume that's kind of what you're hearing. Is there any sort of variation of that? Are there some areas of disagreement? What's the overall theme of the community feedback that you've been getting in terms of the expenses that we're going to be justifying with their revenue?
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. And I'm going to point back to the working group that we had. And we had one community member who said, wow, this is a lot of information. It's too much. I'm not going to read that. I've got too much going on in my life. Make it simple, and you just need to say that you need it to keep the lights on. Because the most important thing to me is to have power to keep going on with my life. And then tell me how you can help. And those are the conversations that we're having. Ultimately, we have, like I said, we have over 900,000 customers. We have some pretty complex customers who are asking us to be able to deliver to them things that we aren't able to do right now. I have a team that does all of our bills, and there's a lot of questions about the actual physical bill and the actual structure of what we do bill. If we want to do this without technology, I still need people to be able to deliver on that. And people are going to be more expensive than the technology. And there's some technology we just don't even have today.
Has there been discussion about something we've talked about, which is the importance of security, both physical and cyber? Have there been conversations about that?
Yes, sir. We actually get a lot of questions, specifically the more headlines customers see about cyber needs and the physical needs and attacks around the country on utilities and specifically, as well as just the fact that we are military town USA and the target that we have on us. So our customers say, we understand. No one's going to say, yes, please go raise my rates, but tell us why it's necessary, make it easy for me to understand, and ultimately, just help me figure out how to minimize the impact.
Mayor, I'm going to ask Corey to come up and spend a little bit of time on our budget. But
Yeah, and I wanted to see that on the graph now.
Yes, sir.
And also, I assume,
Just real quick, I'm sorry, and then Dr. Romero, back to Dr. Romero.
I just want to use a quick analogy, and there's probably 15 different analogies that I could use. We're setting 30,000 new meters a year, which means that our service area is, it's growing out towards, our boundaries. And I would say, I would use the analogy, it's like being on a beach with one lifeguard, right? And all of a sudden now that lifeguard's got to cover much more beach. And so, eventually you're going to have to add another lifeguard to ensure that, the swimmers are safe. I mean, we're in that situation where as our customers grow, we got to benchmark the kind of employee per customer, numbers to ensure that we can respond if we lose, 15% of our customers due to a storm. So, we're not just pulling numbers out of the air. This O&M and capital drivers are based on the plan that our community told us was important to them, and based on benchmarks that say, hey, we're doing it as efficiently as our peer utilities across the industry. So,
okay, and so generation plan, all the things that we just talked about, that's in this graph?
That is, it's layered in there, sir, and the nearly $14 billion over 15 years that we needed to be spent to achieve that is dropped in there. So
Okay,
that's what you
so
see.
your projection in FY '27 is also in there?
Yes.
Okay, so my point in this is, if we were to say we want to go slower, we're going to have to start trimming off that orange bar, and we're going to have to ask our customers, what don't you want out of what we discussed?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, could we go to, I don't know if this is reflected, but what we want to avoid also is rate shock. And so, I had a side conversation about energy burden and what our affordability programs are helping to do for our lower income customers. Could you go to slide 16? My question was, and I assume this is going to come up today at the council, could we do more on that? What is the balance here?
Yes, sir. We could always do more. I think it's what is our community willing to pay for. So at the end of the day, right now it's costing the average residential customer 83 cents per month. And the question is, how much is reasonable for the remainder of our customers to bear the burden on? And I default to our legal guidance on kind of the reasonability piece. Ultimately, we know that we have, I have some stats on the energy burden for our customers somewhere. We know customers that pay more than 10, we know which customers pay more than 10% of their energy bill for today. And we know who it is that needs that assistance. And so it's not just through this, but it's through all of our other resources and the other partnerships that we have to help lower that impact and ultimately help find ways to connect them with jobs and help get their home better from a weatherization perspective.
One of the points we tried to make in the last increase was that the base rate increase itself we would not impact those on affordability programs. And I remember we did that. But here, we're reducing the impact by 50%, and in exchange, we're opening the pipe a little bit more for more eligibility for folks who have a higher burden, meaning that, just like we hope in this community as we build, an ecosystem where people can afford their homes again, that people have less than a 30% burden in their rent or their mortgage. In this case, 10% should be, it should be less than 10% that it's your utility bill. So that's the eligibility.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's helpful. Now, on the other side of rate shock, what we experienced 2 years ago, actually a year ago around this time, was the fact that fuel charges had gone up. It's actually something that's completely outside of our control in terms of the cost of fuel, which is purely a pass-through. When everybody saw their bills shoot up last summer and there was the quote-unquote windfall, it was because gas suppliers all around the state, which are privately owned, have the ability, because of regulatory, shall I say, looseness, allows them to do that at the expense of ratepayers. And so I asked you, Rudy, and I don't know if you can describe this, what has been the impact on people's bills based on the growth of fuel costs over the last 10, 20 years?
Well, I may need to phone a friend. I do know we have fuel, trends that we can show you that we'll send to the board after the board meeting. But last year, I believe gas prices were up around $4 or $5 an MMBTU. We're back down to $2-3 an MMBTU this year. So last year, none of the fuel is a pass through for us. A lot of the driver of the city revenue overage last year was completely dependent upon that fuel cost going up. This year, that fuel cost came down. So, even though it was hotter, and I got this question, last night from someone, even though it was hotter and you were using more, there was some relief on the fuel cost from last summer. So overall, kind of normalized from that perspective, even though it was super, super hot. So, fuel goes up and down, and we pass the increase or the decrease down in real time. There's a process we go through with the city. So yes, last year, fuel was up. We didn't have an increase. There was no, base rate increase proposed last year. This year, fuel was down, we're talking about an increase. So it just depends on the year. But those costs go up and down primarily,
We'll fluctuate
pretty
those every
regularly.
month. And so for context, since last summer, they've gone down about 25-30%, on a customer's average bill, and that's significant. And the other point probably to continue that is kind of where we compare to other cities, right? And that's not in this particular slide, but we show it
I was just
often.
about to ask it. That was
Let you ask if you want.
my last question. And this whole rate fluctuation really was a reflection more of, beyond the summer heat, but the cost of fuel. I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, so I signed up for the predictable bill program, whatever we call that, so I know exactly what I'm paying every month. That's the only way we can deal with that part of it. But I would like to see a graph, if we can, over the last 10, 20, even 30 years about how much that cost of fuel is that every ratepayer has to pay, that CPS has no control over. And so the last question I have, and I don't know if you have a graph on this, but where, if we do this, and slow and steady, if we do this again in 2027, where will we be vis-a-vis our peers, public and private utilities in the state and in the country with respect to our bills? Because we have promised in one way or another that we're gonna remain an affordable utility based on all the other options that people have around the state, realizing that this is the only option because, my neighbor owns it, you own it, everybody in this community owns this utility, and we've got to take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. And we'll actually have a handout that I know Melissa's working on, but it'll be this benchmarking that we've talked about. And the long and short of it is, we are combined electric and gas lowest bill in the state of Texas. The next closest is Austin Energy, and over the last decade plus, it's been Austin and CPS fighting for the lowest or second lowest. And with this rate increase, based on numbers from the end of September, we'll still be close to $8 to $10 lower than a combined bill in Austin. So to your point about a relative comparison, we think coming out of this will still be comparably, the lowest and continue to compete for that in the coming decades.
Okay, well, that's certainly a benchmark. Beyond the financial metrics, which I think are important, what I want to make sure is that, number one, we're keeping the lights on for folks in our community who own this utility. And two, we remain competitive from a total bill standpoint with the peers across our state. And if we're doing that, I think we're doing our jobs. And again, I'll go back, nobody likes this. And we're going to hear about it, just like we do every time we have to raise additional revenue. But and we're here to hear that criticism. But up here, if we're going to reflect that criticism, give me some solutions. And to this point, I don't think a solution to that criticism about we need to keep the lights on, we need to keep it affordable, we need to make sure it's secure, et cetera, is let's just not do that. That would be a great utopia to live in, but that's not reality. So we're going to go slow and steady. We're going to meet our customers' obligations. We're going to do what they're asking us to do. And I'm supportive of what I'm seeing so far and appreciate the good work you guys are doing. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Dr. Romero.
I will be fast, and thank you for all your comments, Mayor. They were really helpful. I was laughing a little bit. Rudy, when you made that analogy, I was wishing we had a clip from the Barbie movie where Ken says, "I'm not a lifeguard, I'm just beach." And it was like you said about needing the lifeguards. Just to go back, the expand eligibility piece that the mayor was just pointing out, that did come out of a RAC recommendation during the rate structure discussion.
It absolutely did. As part of the RAC discussion, we started being able to focus on some general numbers as it relates to energy burden. And now our team has been able to manually do it, but pull together data to identify each one of our customers' current energy burden.
Okay, thank you. So just jumping ahead, I know we're going to vote on December 7th, but when we have our meeting next week, so the public knows what? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that wrong? Yeah. Okay, December 4th, sorry. But when we have our meeting next week, will anything about the rate increase be on our agenda?
Yes, ma'am. I will be providing an update on the community feedback. I'll be talking through the ad hoc, what we covered in the working group, and the amount of what the feedback is that we've received so far.
Okay, and I also just wanted to say I'm happy to hear from people. I really am. It probably wouldn't be wise to just give out my mobile phone number. I think most people know where I work and they know where to find me. But Shannon, could you remind the public of how they can send a message directly to the trustees if they want to?
Absolutely. There is a trustee inbox. If you go to our website and you go to the link for public meetings, it is right there, and you can just click one click and send an email to all of the trustees. I also wanted to note for the public or anyone that's looking that we will post the agenda for next week's meeting today, so that information will be available to everyone today.
And just to confirm, Dr. Romero, the tile did go live today while we've been in here for a rate increase. Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Steen?
Okay, just a couple of things before I get back to mine. I think you may have left a misimpression that we're just subject to whatever gas prices are. And maybe you could explain to the public that aren't we actively hedging and doing things to try to get the best price we can on our
Yes,
fuel?
sir. We're hedged up to a certain percentage of our overall gas need. When it gets really hot, we need more gas to run through our power plants, to run through our gas system, really cold, one or the other. There are times where, we're buying gas on the market, but between the gas storage that we've had, that we've been working to make much more robust part of our system, the hedging that we do control a good portion of our gas cost. Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Garza. Mr. Kaczynski, going back to this financial health, people listening in, we're referring to our fiscal year. Take a moment to explain our unusual fiscal year, because it's usually confusing to people. They can be thinking these things are further out than they are and that sort of thing.
Sure. So as an example, today we're in November 2023 calendar, but we're in our fiscal 24 year.
So we'll have a fiscal 2024 year that will end
January 31st.
a month into 2024.
Yes, sir.
So when we're talking about all this, 2025 is right on top of us?
It would be mostly calendar '24, yeah.
And then just responding to something you said, and it doesn't seem to match up with the graph, but did I understand you to say that you were talking about increased pressure on our debt capitalization ratio, and you said it might go as high as 67 in 5 years?
Yes, sir, I did speak to that.
If we could go to that graph that's on,
In the appendix?
32. So you're showing it trending down to 60.9, and then you're thinking that within 5 years it'll be up at 67?
Yeah, so the view I showed on slide
And
9
is
and 10
is that factoring in this rate increase that,
Yes.
okay, but none others?
No, it factors in the whole 25-year forecast, but as we've talked about, there's uncertainty in the outer years, but we still produce a long-range forecast regardless. And so I think from this conversation here, this slide could be updated for 5 years, and we'll show you that in our, final recommendation. But the statement remains true, though, that I shared.
All right, thank you, Corey. Let's put up slide 16. And I wanted to follow up. I think other trustees are interested in this like I am. Okay, so that those listening can get some context, how long has CPS Energy had in place its affordability discount program?
I mean, decades, I think as long as I've been here, I can't remember not having it.
Right, and that may be a question for Ms. Hardwick.
We can find out, but it's been at least 10 years.
All right, and it's accurate to describe the program as one whereby certain CPS Energy customer bills are partially paid by other CPS Energy customers.
Yes, sir. Just like everything, all of our programs, that is something that everybody in our community pays for.
All right, and then we're able to do this, and this may be Ms. Ramirez, but we're able to do this because it's specifically allowed under a state statute, is that correct? And maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the question that you're asking me.
Right, we have an affordability discount program, and so we're charging customers different rates. And I think that I know that Reed Williams, when he's presented to us, has talked about a particular section of the utility laws that allows us to do that.
I'm not sure what legal justification he was referring to, but I can tell you our customers aren't charged different rates. They're charged the same rates, and then a discount is applied. That discount is funded through affordability programs, and a big chunk of the affordability programs that we have are enabled by Texas statutes. For instance, if you are at a certain level of income and you fall into a category like disabled veteran, over a certain age, or certain other qualifying medical conditions, then you are entitled we are entitled to utilize some of those discount programs.
Well, but I thought that when Reed Williams talked to us, he said that there had to be a benefit that flows to the customers that are doing this subsidizing. Is that correct?
Well, again, I can't speak to what Reed was arguing legally, but I will tell you that the general, and this is taking a whole lot of case of laws about what appropriate rates are and boiling it down to a couple of sentences. But I would say that there is a general rule that says you cannot discriminate amongst customers. You charge them based on the costs of service to that class of customers. And so, in this case, where we are applying a discount to a certain segment of a class of customers, there needs to be a benefit provided, and the application of that needs to be reasonable. So here, providing a discount to folks that might not be able to pay a bill timely, the benefit to everyone is that we don't spend expenses to collect and to recover past due debts. That's the benefit that's provided to everybody. We spend less money to do that. However, we're always weighing, is the cost that the other customers are paying a reasonable cost to incur for that benefit? And that's why I can't tell you there's a certain dollar amount that the discount can't go above or below. It's just a reasonableness standard.
That's a very good explanation. So maybe you could describe briefly, and it might help with people listening, how a customer qualifies for our existing affordability discount program.
Yes, sir. So through income qualifications, I'm pulling it up specifically now.
I know it has to do with the federal
Yes,
poverty.
federal poverty limit, the level that you're at for
125%.
your federal poverty limit, as well as your average medium income is part of it. So that's one of the first pieces. You have to meet 2 qualifications, and another one could be your age.
And then you have to pick from that, I mean, it has to be
There's a
something
table that
would-
shows, based on federal poverty guidelines, that is posted on our website and that we also share with customers, that based on how much you make and what your average medium income is, you get to, you are eligible based on income as well as age. So senior citizens, we also have the ability for people who are disabled or have other issues that need additional assistance. On top of that, with the expanded qualification, the energy burden, which is defined as severe when 10% of your average, your annual income is your energy bill, that's considered severe energy burden. And so that's the additional qualifier that we are adding as part of the expansion, or we're recommending adding as part of the expansion for ADP.
Right, we're talking today about expanding it, this severe energy burden idea. By the way, will the board be asked to approve that?
Yes, sir. This is part of the tariff changes that we would be making as part of the rate changes.
All right, and then could you give me a ballpark figure of the number of households or customers that qualify for this program under its current configuration? And then how many new customers will be added once the severe energy burden expansion is put in place?
We have some limited information regarding data on customers' total AMI, as well as the average medium income, as well as age and who's on disability. So based on the information that we have, it's really related to energy burden. That's the most accurate data that I have access to. And
No, I'm just asking, how, as you stand here today, how many people are in the affordability district?
65,000 customers.
Okay, I'm sorry if I didn't ask that clearly. And then, how many customers will be added once a severe energy burden expansion is put in place?
We're looking at approximately 15,000, so it'll represent about 80,000 customers in total that would receive the discount.
All right, and admittedly, the dollar amounts seem modest when presented on a per-customer basis, but ballpark, what's the total amount of dollars we're dealing with here? Or put
so-
another way, once the severe energy burden customers are added in, how much money will our total residential base be asked to contribute on an annual basis?
Yes, sir. So currently, our affordability discount program costs about $12 million in total, and by adding this increase, it'll be roughly an additional $4 million. It's not just expanding the eligibility, but it's also increasing the number of customers enrolled and increasing the discount that all customers receive.
So put into place, it'd be about $16 million?
Yes, sir.
Annually? Okay. And why are only residential customers charged and not our commercial customers?
Commercial customers are charged, and we can show you what those costs are for all of our customers pay into this. We just highlighted the residential amount, but we have the information we can share as part of what the impact
All right,
is.
because I was looking at that note that said residential electric and gas customers, but you left off, but everybody contributes to it?
Yes, sir. All customers contribute to it, and we can share with you what those different costs are.
All right, and is this on top of the proposed base rate increase or included in it?
It is included as part of the base rate increase.
Okay, and if it's included, how much of the 4.25% of it is it?
Yeah, it's not incremental like that. It's kind of self-funded. It's around how the different customers pay. So we'd still ask for a 4.25% because we still need the aggregate $85 million coming into the organization. It's the additional burden that the customers, as noted here, would pay. So instead of 83 cents, if you wanted it lower, then customers could maybe pay 70 cents per month if we didn't add them. But we'd still net bring in $85 million to the system because that's the need. So hopefully it helps.
And Ms. Ramirez, I know that was very well done that I asked you about that and you knew so much about that utilities. But you're sort of mentioning that at what point does this not benefit the customers who are doing this subsidizing? So there are limits, is what you're saying, and then is it possible that we would do something like this and it would be challenged?
Again, I think there are limits, and I think that unfortunately, there's not a bright line rule of what the limit is. I do think, though, that looking at what our collection costs have been over the past 2 years, spreading those out would far outweigh 83 cents per customer. So I feel like that easy test alone makes it all right. And then, what was the second half of the question? I apologize.
I was just asking, is there a possibility it would be challenged? Are these things challenged by people on a routine basis?
No, they aren't challenged on a routine basis because not a lot of folks have affordability programs that are this robust and beneficial to customers. So they aren't challenged often. The answer is always yes to can it be challenged. If a certain group of our ratepayers in a significant numbers thought that our rates were unreasonable, those ratepayers that live outside of the city limits of San Antonio could go to the PUC and challenge the reasonability of our rates. That risk is there all the time for us. And again, why we're so careful to make sure that we stay in that reasonableness range.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for answering my questions about expanding the affordability discount program. And I've got one more area I want to ask about. It's fairly short, but I'll pause and let other trustees jump in at this time.
No. The floor is yours, Mr. Steen.
And this, I think these are my final comments. I want to address what might be described as the elephant in the room in regard to recent base rate increase deliberation, and that's the fact that as of the end of September 2023, the latest figures that have been provided me, CPS Energy has 201,000 customers, both residential and commercial, past due for $175 million. And that's up from the previous month by 11,000 customers and by $4 million. My question, to which I've yet to receive a satisfactory answer, is how is management going to persuade the council to add this additional monetary burden to the 193,000, or 23% of our residential customers who are currently in arrears? This past due problem has been with us for some time, and there's no indication, contrary to Mr. Garzon's sanguine assurances early on, that it's going to be anything but intractable. Again, it involves close to a quarter of our residential customers. And my understanding is that later today you'll be presenting to City Council, and that City Council members have been provided the same information that you provided to both this board and the public ahead of today's meeting. Frankly, I'm surprised by the omission of any written material related to past due accounts. Could someone put up slide 5, please? So I see that included in this list of community commitments delivered is increased transparency and clarity of communications. But in my mind, to not address the past due situation at all is the obverse of transparency. And so I respectfully contend that this issue must be addressed head on. And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to conclude the meeting at 1 o'clock? Is there any other further discussion by any board member? I want to thank everybody for the lively conversation. There's a lot of takeaways. Can you repeat any of the takeaways or any open items?
I have 3 action items from this meeting. Request for cost of fuel trend over the last, I put 15 because the request was 10 to 20 years. From the mayor, I have an update on the appendix trend slide on financial metrics to show 5 years out from Trustee Steen, and a request to verify how long our affordability discount program has been in place from trustee Steen, and that is it on the open action items added today.
I've got
And just
two
to be-
more. I've got
go
two
ahead.
more that I wrote down, Shanna. We probably ought to let the board members know the statutory reference that trustee Steen was asking about specifically, and we can get our Austin team to help with that. And then ADP for residential and commercial. Mr. Steen asked for the breakdown for commercial as well.
And then just before we conclude the meeting, I want to make sure that we know that for item number 6, executive session, there's no items to discuss. Okay, that concludes our meeting officially at 12:56.
You need a
Move to
motion?
adjourn. 12:56.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. In favor?
I pulled it really quick, I'll tell you. I'll send it to you in full. We got it by one. Senate Bill 14.